Good afternoon, everyone. Sheru and Vish here at the very special edition of our podcast. I have a very special guest, a dear friend I've been communicating with last few years. His name is Robert Grant, a big name when we talk about quantum physics, mathematics, geometry. He's a great entrepreneur. He's a polymath, and at the same time, he's made many companies public under his guidance, supervision. Ex-CEO of one of the famous, brands we know, Bosch and Lomb. Grant is also known for his work across the world. Apart from being an entrepreneur, he has a great vision how to educate people, how to motivate people, and making people fearless in terms of achieving their goals and targets in life. And that's very inspiring to me. And because of that very reason, I have two very special guests along with me and Robert, which is my beautiful daughter, Lara, and my amazing son, Shamsher. Robert, welcome to our podcast, and this is a very, very special one.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Lara, and Shamsher. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Yeah. So, Robert, we talk about quantum physics, we talk about geometry, we talk about mathematics. But at beginning of your life, when you finish your college, were you always very in tune towards mathematics, science, or because I've seen like you were entrepreneur, you were CEO, you come from a business background. What inspired you, and what change happened to actually shift your journey from being an entrepreneur towards this side of the game?
Well, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, that time of life where you have to make decisions on which career you want to go into, and Lara and Shamsher will soon be facing these same type of decisions.
Yeah.
I didn't like the idea that I had to go into one career.
Yes.
And I felt a real kind of rebellion against that.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, what's the thing that I could do? Because I was interested in mathematics, I was interested in so many different areas, biology, in law, in international business. So I thought, what could I do that would kind of create the ideal career for me over time? And I ended up landing on business that was in healthcare, that was in legal matters. So I was doing a lot of business development, mergers and acquisitions, and I got to almost become like a lawyer, like a doctor, an inventor as well. And I was able to tailor my career to what my unique talents were that I could bring to the world. And I wasn't forced, even though everyone wanted to force me into one direction. I was not forced ultimately into one career. I was able to do all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I see a very similar, you mentioned you were forced, but you've been what you like. And initially you started as an entrepreneur. Later on, you've been, fulfilling your dreams, what you wanted. And we see kids in today's world. Lara, she's 13, Shamsher, he's 16. And one of the things they were mentioning me earlier on that kids, they are scared of mathematics. And I've always been telling them, mathematics, quantum physics, and all the calculation, geometry, they should never be scared. They should actually use and try to understand the concept, how, sacred this is to humanity, and how everything in the universe is entangled. It's, attached to each other. We come later on, to string theory as well, how everything is entangled. But, coming back to the base questions, how these kids can overcome this fear of mathematics.
I think the most important thing with mathematics is a lot of people don't like math. Like I was in Poland last week.
He had challenge with maths, last year, and now, he's actually improving a lot. And he's a very brave kid because when he sees certain challenges, he works hard to overcome that.
Wow. So I was in Poland last week. I gave a presentation in Warsaw. And while I was there, I asked everybody, how many of you liked your math classes? And nobody raised their hand. and it was kind of funny. There was 2,000 people in the room. And the reason is because we learn math without meaning. So we try to teach mathematics as a nameless, faceless, personality list. It doesn't mean anything to us. It's not like a meaningful exercise. But as soon as you start to imbue the math with meaning, then it takes on an entirely different context for us. If you understood that mathematics is the language of the universe, language of God, then you could start to look at it in a very different way and communicate with the universe in a different way. We should be learning mathematics as language, first and foremost. And that's the way that I was a linguist. I speak 8 languages fluently.
I know. I've been following you for years, and you're one of the things you have mentioned in many videos, which is on top of my head. Applied mathematics lead to physics. Applied physics lead to chemistry. Applied chemistry leads to biology. Applied biology leads to psychology. Applied psychology leads to sociology. Sociology leads to philosophy. Philosophy leads back to mathematics. So it's like
you're good. You have a good memory.
So it's like because if you are able to master mathematics, everything you want to do in life, it becomes easier, even if it's astrology and numerology as well.
True. And I think that's the thing, is that we have been learning all these different subjects, like biology and chemistry is totally different subject areas.
Yeah.
But actually, they're just all cascading from the mathematics of philosophy.
Yeah.
And when you understand that, then you realize, wow, we're in like a simulation of our mind that you can communicate back and forth with by understanding the way that U inverse is communicating back to you.
Yes.
We say universe, but actually it's a U inverse. It's like you projected out and then coming back to you.
Yeah.
And so the way your subconscious mind, which is really that projection in front of you, communicates with you is through math and numbers.
Yeah.
And through synchronicities and the geometry that you're seeing. So when you look at a new geometric shape or a form, you might think, oh, that looks really cool. Like if you're playing a video game or something, that looks really cool, that particular shape. But actually that shape is giving you a QR code for your subconscious mind.
Yes.
It turns on something inside of you just by looking at it. You don't have to study it. You don't have to understand it. Just look at it and it will change something inside you. It will open your heart in a new way that you didn't even think was possible. And this is the reason why people don't like math, is because it's so focused on left brain thinking. When actually the most powerful kind of thoughts we can have is when we combine both sides of our brain. The creative force, the creative desire and drive within us, it's in our right brain if we're right-handed. And our left brain has all of the rational thought. When we can combine those two things together, then you have homo luminous, right? You have the enlightened man, the man who is, or the woman who is able to have hemi-synchronization of both sides of your brain. That's where your knowledge and your level of understanding of the universe goes way, way up. And everyone can tap into this.
Alignment with the universe. And that's why, it's very important for humanity to be in sync with nature, which is going to bed on time, making sure the sleep pattern and sleep level we have from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is very, very important, which I always tell you. And waking up 4 a.m., the concept and the reason behind is because according to our religion, I come from a Hindu and a Sikh background, 24 hours are divided into, muhurtams of 48 minutes every single day. And muhurtam, which is like a period. And most auspicious period, they say, is 1 hour 36 minutes before sunrise, because that's a time where the universe and the creation
96 minutes before sunrise.
It can vary from day to day basis, from summer to winters as well. And the reason they say is that because during that time universe is opening its door, and if we are able to meditate and concentrate, our the wavelength where we are existing and where we are able to tap and visualize our future, we get access. It's like coming from city to here, a lot of traffic. If you come in daytime, in early morning, there is no traffic. So because your hormones are down, you are not thinking too much, you are concentrating on a certain thought, what you want to achieve early morning.
And there's not much consciousness traffic at that time too.
Exactly.
In your vicinity.
And because you are not in communication with any group or any people or any person, you are in alignment within yourself. You are able to tap into your subconscious mind as well through meditative source. And then once you are able to tap into, you got access to infinite realities, and you can choose your future. Based upon quantum physics, we are existing in infinite realities. And based upon our mindset and thought, we can access different realities that, based upon what we think. And I think this is very important for, kids in the upcoming generation to be more thoughtful about all these things, so they are able to, gain this knowledge before people like you and me pass away. Because this is a time of social media where there is a lot of distraction. You have 3 kids. I'm sure.
4 kids.
So I'm sure, you have a similar, conversation at your house.
All the time, because we have right now this inundation of everybody. I like to say this. I don't believe the world is a difficult place because people hate each other. I believe the world becomes a difficult place because people don't like themselves. People don't like themselves. That's the saddest thing. That's the pandemic of the world right now. And the reason is we have all these things where you see this fake stuff on social media where it's like everyone's selfie in this perfect life. And then people think my life is not that great. And we have very high rates of teen suicide. And it's very sad. And it doesn't have to be this way. If you can really realize that the most important reason that we're here on earth is just to learn to love and how to be loved. That's it. The rest doesn't really matter so much. And it's funny because a lot of reductionists and scientists, they'll say, oh, it can't be that simple. It is actually that simple. Just love and learn to love yourself. And by loving yourself, you will no longer judge others and you will love others as well. And how to receive love from others also. This is the most important thing. And once you do this, then you can tap into much higher knowledge, much higher understanding, great wisdom. Mathematics will become easier for you, much easier for you, because you become heart-centered. And the heart centering is the most important thing that we can do to gain that higher degree of enlightenment. And all of this is taught by the Vedic mathematicians.
Vedas. And you have any questions, right? She started going to temple, and a few months ago she have certain questions about Vedas. But you have chance to ask anything from a great man here. Do you have any questions for him? Don't be shy. You can ask.
No, I can't be good.
Okay, Shamsher, you want to ask him anything? You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I tell you one thing, she's a bit shy. In school, there have been times where kids have faced, they have experience where, we wear tilak in the center. That is completely to, stimulate the pineal gland with chandan, because it's a coolant source, and putting chandan in your, forehead, it stimulates your third eye. And there's so many things about the religion, but one of the most important thing which, I have been teaching my kids is the concept of Trinity gods, which is Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, proton, neutron, electron. And I would love, you also have certain knowledge to tell the viewers here how the Western world have actually learned from Indian Vedas a lot of information, from your experience.
I think it's fascinating. You're just talking about with, the Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva. Can actually directly correlated to the 3 subsets of what we call particle physics that are most critical. And then actually you could say that even within that, as we go smaller and smaller and smaller, we keep finding 3 more sets. And then 3 more sets. Maybe it's just the same thing that's a fractal representation, just smaller and smaller scale. So 10 to the negative 15th, then 10 to the negative 30th, then 10 to the negative 45.
There's no end. There's infinite universe outside and infinite universe inside into the particle, in the quantum physics. And is Trinity gods related to proton, neutron, electron, and it's a very similar thing. What we've been taught in our culture.
Well, even when you look at the macro scale, so you go 10 to the negative 15th would be like a hydrogen atom.
Yes.
10 to the positive 15th, right? We're starting looking at the scale of a solar system.
Yes.
And we are at the center.
Yeah.
We're at the center. 10 to the 30th is going to be at a galaxy scale, right? And then as we keep scaling out farther and farther, we have galaxy clusters, and then we have, a universe, and then maybe even a multiverse.
Yes.
Maybe it's just a fractal that's repeating over and over and over again. But the Trinity is the central thesis of all of it. And all of it can come down to the simplicity of what we see in video games. So, how many of you, have you played like video games before?
Yeah.
Sometimes? Okay. So one of the things that most people don't know is that in a simulation inside of a video game, you've probably seen this game that the pilots now learn how to fly airplanes based on a simulation.
Yes.
That's the first place they learn. Okay, I learned how to fly a plane. The first thing I had to do was learn the simulation, right? The simulation seems kind of real, right? And now they've gotten really, really advanced. But the way they made it look so real is by one exact geometric form that can fit into any structure. You know what it is? It's a right triangle. So the right triangle is unique because you can make a right triangle, any scale of it, to fit any void space. So it can fit inside circles, it can fill any void spaces, because you can just keep making different sizes of right triangles, but they're still right triangles. But within these right triangles, this is the foundational basis of everything we call the inverse square law, which defines radiation and gravity. So the inverse square law is what defines how much radiation we could be next to without getting hurt, right? And what distance we have to be from it. Also, it defines how powerful the Earth's gravity is on us, pulling us to Earth. But actually, it all comes back to Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva.
Yes.
And the three of these, Brahman being proton, Vishnu being electron, and neutron being Shiva, actually comes down to right triangles that are prime factorization right triangles. And what's interesting, we already know the proton has a charge of positive.
Yes.
We know the electron has a charge of negative. We know also that the neutron has a neutral charge. That's why we call it neutron, right?
That's a great, you're preserving it, which is Lord Vishnu.
So we have three different charges. Well, what's interesting, when you take a prime factorization triangle, like for example, 35 is the product of two prime numbers.
Yes.
5 times 7 equals 35. So that would create a right triangle that will have a shape that will be, the square root of 35 will be the height of the triangle. The number 6 will be the hypotenuse. So the square root of 35 is 5.916. Its hypotenuse will be 6, and its base will be 1. And the way you find the two prime factors is you take the hypotenuse minus the base, and you take the hypotenuse plus the base. So 6 minus 1, 6 plus 1 equals 5 and 7.
Yes.
Right? So now this is a right triangle. We discovered this.
5, 7, the 34.
That's 5 times 7 is 35. So we discovered that the basis of all right triangles, I published a paper on this, is exactly this type of factorization, that there's a father and mother for every right triangle.
Yes.
Okay? And then what happens is it breaks down so that the hypotenuse, I told you, is 6. So it has an even number, right? That's a positive charge. The base is 1. It's an odd number. That's a negative charge.
Yeah.
And the square root of 35 is 5.916, but it's infinite. It never finishes, right? Because it's an irrational number. Yeah. That has no charge. It's a neutral charge. Proton, electron, neutron. Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva.
We also call Shiva Mahesh,
Mahesh.
Yes, yes. So one of the other thing, computer is, we call, qubits, which is 0 and 1.
Yes.
Again, come to mathematics. One of the interesting, things which is coming up is quantum computers.
Yes.
Which is, we talk about qubits rather than 0 and 1. These quantum computers are known to be, million times more faster and powerful than, normal computer, which they say will help us in, breaking a lot of codes, will help humanity to, actually come up with possible solution for different diseases, problems. Even we can project exact weather from now for next few years. I mean, what do you see as a quantum computing in terms of helping humanity in next 2 years? I know IBM just came up with their quantum computer 9 to 10 days ago, and one of the reason why I ask you, because if something like this happen, you think there is a possible solution and cure for all the challenges which humanity is facing?
I think that the answer to the very complex problems we face in the world can only be through simplicity. It's the simplicity of returning back to this understanding of love one another and love ourselves and learn how to be loved. And those sound very easy, but actually it's very difficult. Yeah. It's the most difficult thing we can do. And it starts with knowing who we are. This is what Socrates said. Socrates said, know thyself. You have a lot of people that come here to work out, right? They're very, very into their sport. They're into their activity, their competition, their, all the things they want to become as their ideal. But the most important thing an athlete can do, I'm sure you will agree, is to really know himself or herself. Yeah. And I think that's where it really begins, to answer some of these larger questions. But coming back to the trinity of Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva, I think it actually comes down to what we're seeing now with binary code, yes, which is ones and zeros, yeah, now transitioning to trinary code. So now we go from 1 and 0. We have 1, 0 now, and we have X. And X means it can be 1 or 0.
And plus, this can also mean infinite possibilities.
That's right. It also means we can operate outside of time.
Yes, multiverse, access time dimension as well.
That's exactly right. So that's what's happening. We're going, and that's why in society now we're seeing reflections of this everywhere, where we see the letter X showing up everywhere, right? It's because that represents the number 24. Yeah. The number 24 is also the 24th letter of the alphabet is X. Okay, why 24? There are 3 sets of numbers, and these 3 sets of numbers would also represent Brahman, Vishnu, and Shiva. Okay, there are 3 numbers. There are only 3 pairs of numbers that have double mirror properties. You know what is a double mirror? A double mirror. Imagine you've got something where there's a mirror on this and a mirror on this, and then you look inside, you see the reflection infinitely going back and forth, right? This double mirrored number property only affects 3 pairs of numbers, and these numbers represent the number 73 and 137. So why is this important? Well, because 1 over 137 equals 0.0073. But it's the same numbers. Notice so it could be 00731. There's only 3 numbers that can do this property, where the palindrome, which just means the number backwards, it's like an anagram, right? Just take the number and reverse it, and then it's equal to its reciprocal value. Reciprocal means you just take 1 over that number. So 1 divided by 73 equals, 137. Yes. Just there's some zeros that will go in the front of this, in the back, but that doesn't really matter so much. So the other numbers that do this are 24 and 42. And then the third set of numbers are 57.1 and 175.
And if you calculate 24, 2 plus 4 is 6, 42 is also 6, 2 plus 4 is 6.
That's right.
Which is 6.
That's right. So 6 is this is the basis of our time as well, yes, which is the base 60 system. So what's interesting is these 3 numbers that have these properties of double mirror are connected through the number 24. So, and this is also a math constant. They happen just to be the exact numbers of math constants that separate light from darkness. So 173 or 137 and 73 is the number called alpha. Alpha. So what is alpha? Alpha is the separation of light from darkness. If we put exciting an electron more than 137 times its normal energy, yes, it will cause it to reflect light. So light will come out of the electron. If you don't do enough energy and you just excite it, then it will jump to an outer shell and absorb the energy, right? You might remember this from chemistry class or physics class. This is called the fine structure constant. It's the most important constant in mathematics and physics. It's literally the separation between light and dark, like a mirror between light and dark. Absorption, reflection. And then the other number, 57.1, this is equal to omega constant. So what a coincidence. We have the numbers that are double mirrors are alpha and omega.
Yeah.
The omega constant, which is 0.57, that's an omega constant. And then if you take the two and you divide 137 by 57.1, it equals 2.4 times. These three numbers are like super numbers. So what's happening now is the binary code is transitioning to the trinary code, because this is a reflection of us transitioning out of duality of everything in life must be either or. You have to choose this or you have to choose that, because you have a scarcity basis. You must choose. There's only so much time. You must be a doctor. You can't be a lawyer and a doctor, right? We're now transitioning to a period of time in the world where all of the ors are replaced by ands. You can do more. You can do whatever you want, right? And this notion of the X in between is very powerful. Now, it's also interesting if I take 73 multiplied by 2.4, multiply that again by 57.1 or 0.571, right? So 0.73 times 2.4 times 0.571 equals 1. So alpha, chi, omega is a math equation that means and equals 1.
I didn't.
Unity. So you could say that it's just like Brahman, right? Brahman, Vishnu,
And Shiva
is equal to 1.
One atom, which is creation itself. It's the source.
Yes. And these are the math constants that define this. And the prime number pattern, there's a very famous Vedic mathematician who was from India, who's probably recognized as one of the greatest mathematicians ever to have lived. His name is Ramanujan.
Yeah. There's a movie called Ramanujan as well.
Yes, The Man Who Knew Infinity.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent film.
You should see that.
You should see it. It's great. It's worth watching. And this man had no formal education in mathematics, but he was invited to Cambridge University to become a professor because he had solved these infinite progressions. He understood these progressions, and all of his work was based on the number 24. There's something divine in the number 24. Something very, very divine, because it balances the irreconcilable differences. It can balance the world, and that's the power of this movement into quantum computing. We're basically moving out of duality and into a new yin, shen, yang. It's no longer yin, yang.
Yin, Shen, Yang.
Yin, shen, yang. And shen represents the heart and divinity back on earth. So that's the stage that we're going into now. It has a very deep spiritual consequence and deep spiritual meaning, but it really is that Brahman multiplied by Vishnu and Shiva equals 1.
And then, even we talk about Nikola Tesla, he's always, put his focus that, log to universe are number 369. And there also he has put a lot of emphasis on 3, 6, and 9. And then, he has mentioned that 9 is a most powerful number. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it is.
And why is it?
It's basically Shiva.
The destructor.
Yeah.
And when destruction happens, only then after creation will happen.
Yes, but inside the death is always the birth.
Yes.
The rebirth. It's never ending, right? So if you take a circle and you cut up a circle. So if we cut a circle of 360 degrees, we cut into 2 pieces. How many degrees is in each side? 180, right? 180. But now if we add 1 plus 8 plus 0 equals 9. Okay? So now we cut the circle again, and 360 is 3 plus 6 plus 0 equals 9. We cut the circle again into 90-degree segments. 9 again. We cut it again into 45. 4 plus 5 equals 9. We cut it again into 22.5. 2 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. We cut it again into 11 right? Or so it's going to be 11.25.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it will continue to go always 9 infinitely.
Yeah.
Every geometric form will follow the same pattern. So do you know the sum of angles of a square, right? A square is 360 degrees.
Yes.
Okay? If we look at the pentagon, it's 540 degrees.
Yeah.
We look at the hexagon, 720 degrees. 7 plus 2 plus 0 equals 9. Then we go to the octagon.
960.
Yeah, well, it's 1080, right? It's going to be the octagon.
Yeah.
The heptagon will be 900. And then we go to, beyond the octagon is the nonagon, 9-sided, right? And each one of these will always sum to 9, without exception. Every geometric form will always sum to 9. So everything is birth from 9. Everything is dying through the number 9.
Yes.
But death is only a rebirth.
You think as humans we actually die, or this is just a switch on and off of consciousness? Because there's been, you just mentioned earlier, we're living in a stimulation. Do you really feel that we are in a computer programming, like we are in a matrix? I know that I'm not mentioning any movie or anything here,
The Matrix.
but from the actual, knowledge standpoint, we never have this discussion. So I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I do. I believe we live in a simulation.
Because I've also, seen a lot of videos and literature that inside our DNA there's a computer code, and this is a very similar computer code which is used in computers.
Yes,
which is zeros and one.
Even our DNA.
Yeah,
it's a self-correcting zeros and ones code.
Yeah.
But we're about to get the X as well.
Yes.
So it's not only computers that are getting upgraded now to quantum computing, but our own DNA is getting upgraded.
And our 90%, 98% of our DNA, which scientists have said before that it's a junk DNA because there are no strands. Actually, the main knowledge is hidden there, which which has been said in our Vedic knowledge as well, because that particular DNA is influenced by a sound and Agni, which is fire. And when Shamsher's accident happened, I remember in the hospital we were advised to take a sound therapy because he was in coma for 5 days. We tried so many things, and after sound therapy, I see like there were in certain moments, but over the time I've also realized when I do my meditation early in the morning, certain sound frequencies like 963, 472, they actually help me to go into, like, it's like a roadway which helped me to go into that zone like faster. So I mean, coming back to our DNA and coming back to the computer coding, how fascinating it is that able to understand we are like very advanced robots in ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I did research on this in 2015 that I filed patents on as well. Normally for discovery, you can't file patents, but because it's a discovery. So you can only file patents on inventions. But I invented new methods of interpreting DNA based on this self-correcting binary code that I found within it. And
so is it called area anchronation code, or is a specific term to that, right?
Yeah, it's a self-correcting binary code. And the way that this works is if we take adenine and thymine, the building blocks of our DNA. So we have adenine pairs with thymine, guanine pairs with cytosine, right? And then in the transfer RNA process, uracil is replacing thymine, right? Comparing up with adenine. What I found is that nature has a counting system. The counting system is simply the number of protons. So we know that these these what we call nucleotide pairs, right? These base pairs are made up of only carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, right? So it's basically these 4 things. And we also have sulfur that goes in the phosphate backbone. So when you look at it and you add up the number of protons of carbon, which is 6, number of protons of hydrogen, which is 1, the number of protons of nitrogen, which is 7, the number of protons of of oxygen, which is 8. And then you add up all of the combination, which is
zeros and one.
it creates exactly 9s, which is the same as 0. 9 is the placeholder for 0 in digital root mathematics. And then when you go into transfer RNA, the uracil is replaced with 1, right? So the uracil comes in, and so the pairs that were adenine thymine now convert over to values of 1. So you have 1s and 0s, literally, that create the entire code of our DNA. That's the structure of our DNA. And the combination, the unique combinations of all of these is what then creates all the amino acids, which are 22 amino acids that come out of that. Yeah. And then out of that, you have all of the codon representations as well as, so 64 combinations. And then out of that, you have all the protein synthesis. So protein synthesis is what defines your markers. Yeah. Whether you will be sick later in life, whether you will not be sick later in life. Yeah. Whether you have a proclivity to being sick. Like I have certain markers, but it doesn't mean I can make choices and I can change the way that I'm living in order for those markers not to be turned on, yes. Right? But it's part of my genetic code. It's literally a 1s and 0s binary code.
You can actually track, your food behavior based upon your genetics, that this is the food you should eat, this is the food you should avoid. Yeah. And they are very, accurate in terms of how you can live your lifestyle.
And here I follow Vedic on this because
I'm a vegetarian. By the way.
Yeah, I learned that I used to love hot showers, but I'm Pitta in the Ayurvedic method, right? And I learned that I'm always on fire. Right? So my hands are hot. I always like sweating when I'm sleeping.
Me as well.
And so I learned I shouldn't take hot showers.
First thing in the morning, you should take cold shower first. I'm Pitta as well. The shower should go right towards your, belly button. After that, your pineal gland.
Yeah.
So a special type of protein will be released by your body. Mm-hmm. And once after the cold shower, you are meditating, you are from A to Z, you start getting aligning with nature.
Yeah. Yeah. And I started doing that. I noticed a huge difference, right? And I became friends with Deepak Chopra. And so Deepak said to me, okay, you have to do this. You're Pitta, so you should not eat hot food. Yeah. And I love spicy food. So it's like a bummer but it's like fire always wants to feed its fire, right? Yes. So it loves hot food. So I loved hot food. But then when I gave it up, I noticed my stomach is not upset.
Yeah, you're more balanced.
I'm much more balanced, right? And that's the whole key here. Again, it comes back to the Trinity. It's Pitta, Kapha, Vata, right? Yeah. Those are the 3 types. So we all have to know what it is that we're matching towards. And then, of course, our DNA and our time of birth and our astrology and all of these things are connected. It's all connected. And if you haven't read yet Gene Keys. Yes, I highly recommend. In fact, I did a podcast that just went live today with the writer of Gene Keys. His name is Richard Rudd. And it's on my page, Robert Edward Grant, on YouTube.
I definitely
check out Gene Keys, because Gene Keys is just the higher order of astrology. It's the higher order understanding of numerology as well. Are you into astrology?
She had few questions, for me actually a few weeks ago. You want to ask something about astrology?
About astrology?
Numerology? How accurate it is? How
incredibly accurate.
Yes.
Like, I find it so interesting how, like, he's really into, like, charts and stuff. And I find it so interesting how you could just, like
synastry charts. You're into synastry?
Astrology charts.
Yeah, astrology, they call it synastry. Yeah. Synastry astrology charts.
Mm-hmm. And how, like, you could see your whole future in a way, but, like, you can make decisions to, like, change it.
Yes. You can break your cycle of samsara, right? We all have a cycle
of samsara. Samsara is, we call it materialistic world. In the sansar is a Sanskrit word sansara, which is imaginary.
Mm-hmm. So we have I said this U inverse. So you could take your birthday, right? Your birthday date. Now I follow both Western astrology and Vedic. So when we find ourselves moving towards our higher self, we start to move more towards the Vedic system. Okay. In my case, I'm both Taurus in the Western, because I'm born at the end of Taurus, and also I'm Taurus in the Vedic system as well. So, but if you are more born towards the beginning or early part on the Western system, then you will likely be the one before on the Vedic, because Vedic for Taurus, for example, starts on June, on end of May 15th,
Yeah.
May 15th, May 16th, goes until June 15th, June 16th. Whereas on the Western system, it's April 21st to May 21st. So basically, there's a shift that happens.
Yeah.
But you can look at your birth date. You can take your birth date, and then in my case, it's 5/16/1969. So May 16th, 1969. So I have a numerical representation of it. Then I add also my name, Robert Edward Grant. I can change it to gematria. So R equals 1, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. So you just do the same thing with your name. And there's calculators online, you can do this. And then the location of your birth as well, which I was born in Wichita Falls, Texas, in gematria. And then I take this long number and I take it to the third power to understand the third dimension of me. So the third power of me becomes 137.4545, and it keeps repeating.
How you calculate that third power?
It's just you take it to the third power. So it'd be multiplied by itself. So 5161969, and then all the other numbers I said.
Oh.
And I multiply it by the same number, 5.161969, and then the same number again, third power, to make it the third dimension, right? Because dimension is like this. Then I take its inverse, and the inverse becomes 0.00729, blah, 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 blah. It goes out farther and farther and farther. And that becomes a repetitive number, right? That number becomes what's called a period. So the period creates a samsara. So it's the life path I have. Literally the life path I have is in my number based on my birth location, my birth time, right? Also, I forgot to put in, you should put the time of your birth as well.
Yes.
So, and it should be in 24-hour clock. So 1803, I was born at 6:03 p.m. in the evening. This becomes your samsara cycle until you realize that you're in a cycle. And then once you realize you're in the cycle, then you can break the cycle and you can create an infinite path. And this is, in Gene Keys, is called the golden thread, right? The golden thread. So we all have something called a shadow that we must learn to integrate. Then we have to go from the shadow to the gift of what it is that we're here. Things don't just happen to us in this world. What happens to us is what our higher self has chosen for us to learn. So instead of asking, why did someone do this to me? Ask yourself, why did I choose this?
Yes.
What was I supposed to learn from this? Right? And then it changes the context of everything, because then you can learn to fall in love with this world the way that it is. Because you realize it's like this game that we are playing that we ourselves created. And the purpose of the game is to learn how to fall in love with yourself and your circumstance and everyone around you.
And everything is possible. And, Shamsher was a little down once, and he asked me, Dad, why his accident happened. As a teenager, you have many questions. Sometimes you are in a situation where people, other kids in the school, with all due respect, they bully you and, put you down. And I have always told him that everything is possible with so much discoveries happening in this world. There will be a possible solution, but never underestimate the power of mind. With mind, you can actually cure anything and everything.
It's incredible.
And there's so many, so many stories which we have seen, which we have observed over the years, so many miracles which we hear about all the time. And most important thing, I told him that his accident happened, but with the grace of God, his mind is okay. Mind connections are solid. All it is a weaker, cord connection with his spinal cord, and which over the years he's been improving. And one thing, because you are deeply into all, the power of mind mathematics, I want you to also give few words of motivation for, especially for Shamsher and many kids who are, there are few of his friends. They've been, couple of his friends in the school. They are also in a wheelchair where he can also help them. And on the other side, he told me, Dad, I want to help certain kids, and we started Shamsher Foundation. We have adopted 30 athletes for life, and
Really?
We are supporting under the foundation.
That's beautiful.
With their support, and Shamsher has been very active in that aspect. And I always tell him, he's still a teenager, never underestimate power of mind, and miracles do happen. It's only about pushing yourself.
Shamsher, for me, I've met so many people in my lifetime, some of which were very, very, very much in difficult circumstance. One of the most powerful examples of this was a woman named Helen Keller. And Helen Keller was famous because she was a quadriplegic. She couldn't walk. She was deaf. She was blind. Can you imagine? She was deaf, blind, and she could not walk, and she could barely even move. And yet, she has inspired tens of millions of people around the world with her example. You know what she said? She said the only thing worse than blindness is to have sight without vision. Having sight without vision. And to me, that's so inspirational because it's such a deep concept, right?
Yes.
Having vision is different than having sight. And she inspired so many people despite the fact that she had so much challenge. And how many times do we wake up in the morning and we feel like the world is beating down on us? I have it too. And so I have to pick myself up, and I remember that other people have certain life circumstances that they have been able to power their way through because they understand that in life the only real limitations are the ones that we persistently allow ourselves to believe. When I was 19 years old, I learned that it is not seeing is believing. We all say this. Seeing is believing. It's kind of the skeptical way, the cynical way to say, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. But actually, I've learned through life that the opposite is true. Believing is seeing. It's not so important what you believe. What really matters the most in this matrix of mind simulation is how hard you believe it. And miracles can only be available to people who believe that they can exist.
Yes.
People that don't believe a miracle can exist, they'll never see a miracle. Only people that can. I went to Israel, I met with Shimon Peres. And I asked him, as you look back on your life, what's the thing you're most proud of? And he said, the thing I'm most proud of is I never looked back.
Never look back.
And I said, wow, that's interesting. He said, Robert, can I give you some advice? I said, sure. He said, be an optimist. Yeah. Statues will never be erected for pessimists. The pessimist will always find fault and ingratitude, will always find difficulty and unhappiness and reasons to be upset in no matter what happens in the world. But the optimist has the ability to see the silver lining. I told the story. I was at the Vatican last week. I gave a presentation at the Vatican in Rome. And in there, I told the story about two little boys. One was an optimist, and the other is a pessimist. And so the parents on Christmas wanted to have a psychiatrist analyze the two boys to understand why, because they were twins, 5 years old. They should have the same parents, the same circumstance and everything, but they're so different, these little boys. So the pessimist, a psychiatrist comes and says, okay, I set up a room for you on Christmas morning, and he opens the door with all the greatest presents inside. The presents have the best Lego set, the best erector set, the best everything any boy would want, a bicycle in the back and everything, like perfect. And he opens the door, and the little pessimistic boy starts crying. He bursts into tears. And he says, what's the matter? Why are you so sad? He said, oh, my friends are going to take my toys. Some of them are going to break my toys, and I'm going to lose some of them. Then I'll be really sad. So the guy's like, wow, this kid's really pessimistic. So then he takes the optimistic boy outside in the back, and he has a barn, and he opens the door, and it's only full of horse manure. full of horseshit. And so he says, Merry Christmas, all of this is yours. And the little boy jumps up and down. He says, oh boy, I'm so happy. He says, why are you so happy? He says, well, with all this manure in here, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. Those are the people that have the greatest success in life because they don't even perceive the limitations. This is not our real person. This body is not your body. It's just your flesh suit. It's not who you are. You're a magnificent man who is going to do phenomenal things, that the only thing that will keep you from doing the phenomenal things, the greatest things of your life, inspiring thousands and tens of thousands and maybe even millions of people, will be the negative self-narratives that you allow inside your mind. You can do anything. Don't ever let anyone tell you you cannot.
And everything is possible. And you will be successful. You will walk one day and you will see it's happening, Even apart from whatever science is doing, human race is advancing at very rapid pace. But, before that, what you should be proud of, that you are inspiring so many athletes back in India through some Sheru Foundation, and coming up, you are still a positive person, and that you should be proud of.
Turn the word impossible into I'm possible.
I am possible, yes. And
I'll be excited to see what happens with this foundation because I think it could be really great.
I'll send you some videos, and
please.
We have 30 odd athletes competing every time, and in August in England as well, we're promoting wheelchair division bodybuilding shows. Apart from that, just in the back end, we don't post anything about that. We are helping, we're doing few kits which I don't want to even discuss on social media. Just to be completely, that is something which we like to do from our heart. But
absolutely,
that's something which give us satisfaction to another level which you can't count for. But I know you running short on time and you have to be back in city. But one request, I'm a great fan of yourself.
Thank you. Likewise.
And one of the other quantum physicists, Michio Kaku.
Yes, Michio Kaku.
So whenever you get chance, I'd love to be on a table with you and him together.
Okay.
And you have to organize that. I don't know now or maybe
I will reach out to Michio.
And he's in New York, so whenever you are in New York next time, we can go to him or we can bring him here. I'd love to host you for a day proper.
Let's do it. I will reach out to him also because I was going to see if I could interview him on my podcast. And I think it would be, I did one with Lawrence Krauss, who's a famous physicist also, very famous.
Because string theory is very fascinating to me, and a lot of things going around. I know we're short on time, and coming back to bodybuilding and sports world and the athletes, I just want to say that this side of conversation, never anybody have seen me, not even my kids ever, to this length. I'm pretty familiar, especially TJ sitting there, but cosmic energy which we drive through meditation is one of the most powerful source of energy you can consume, and you can actually live on meditation without food and water for days and working like a robot with the full energy and pattern. I mean, you can actually become limitless itself. It's all about power of mind. And how important and precious the cosmic energy is, you can understand once you start meditating. And I, advise everybody, especially teenagers, youngsters in India, across the world, that meditation is one of the most powerful tools which you can adapt in order to fulfill your dream and be, people say sky is the limit. There is no limit.
There's no limit.
And few words from your end, the last few things about cosmic energy and meditation, how important it is if people are able to utilize it.
I know people who have chosen to be breatharian. That means they only live off of prana.
Yeah.
I actually know people who don't eat, right? And yes, they look quite thin, but it's amazing they don't waste away, and they're very healthy. And they have unlimited energy too. I was at a wedding with one recently, and he was like dancing the entire night, and he ate nothing there. Or there are people that only eat fruit, right? And they don't eat anything but fruit. And I'm not saying that any of us have to do that. That's a life choice that we can make. But what I can say is this. I teach a type of meditation called diamond consciousness meditation. And I do it in the morning where the sun is rising. So the place where I can see the sun rise, it sets in the west, but it rises in the east, right? So you have to point towards the east, and where it comes up, you want it to be able, the sunlight to hit you right at your Ajna chakra, right? So at the third eye. And it's a particular type of chant that goes Ia-Om, right? Ia-Om.
Yeah.
And then you do that several times with a breathing exercise as well, and then you do it in reverse. Mo-Wa-I. So instead of Ia-Om, it's backwards. Mo-Wa-I and Ia-Om. I highly recommend you try this method. It does something to activate within you, and it brings a cosmic consciousness into your life, and also a lot of new energy that you maybe have not experienced before. When we can find the still point within ourselves, then our whole life can become more balanced. And balance is the most critical aspect to be able to get hemi-synchronization and be able to truly love and receive love.
Stay calm. It helps you to stay calm. But Robert, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate and you coming here means a lot. And very special day. My kids are here with us.
Thank you so much for being here.
And we're looking forward to see you very soon again.
My pleasure. Such a pleasure to meet you, Lara. Shamsher, such a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again, and sometime maybe we'll end up going to India together.
I would love to. Next event is in November.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to, bring you there. If you,
I would be happy to.
November 17, 18, 19, we can talk. I can organize. We get 300,000 people.
Wow.
So you can actually talk all 3 days. We can be on main stage and, actually inspire the youth which are entangled, with us through our shows, how to adapt,
You get 300,000 people in one place, or is it
3 days?
3 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll send you all those.
That's incredibly huge. I'd be happy to do it with you.
Dr. Robert, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate your support.
Great to be here.
And we're looking forward to welcome you again very soon. Hopefully with our friend Michu Baku. And I want to officially invite you for IHFF Sheru Classic in India, scheduled 17, 18, 19 November.
Okay.
If you can spare some time, we'd love to take you and introduce you among amazing audiences in India.
Awesome. I would love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you.